Thank you so much. I am Matt Olin. That's Tim Miner over there. Hey, Tim. We're the co-founders of Charlotte is Creative. And yeah, for the first time in 2 years, 2+ years, you guys are gathering together here. And not exactly sure why, these two fools are the ones.
Yeah, this is a conundrum. You are coming out of COVID, and this is the first time you're gathering, and these are the two best guys that you could find.
Whatever,
I'm shocked.
Yeah, but we're excited to be here, and we're here to talk to you for a little while about nurturing creativity and innovation in the workplace. And so let's start out by doing a show of hands, okay? How many people here feel like in their current job, their current career, their current workplace, that they are utilizing your full creative potential, absolute full creative potential? Yes, one brave, a few people, wow.
Method people remember.
Okay, there's someone in the back there. That's impressive, I must say. Okay.
Well, method people need to remember that the person doing their performance evaluation is probably in this room.
Yes, that's a good point. Good point. Okay, show
raise your
hands. How many of us think that we have more creativity to give, a deeper well of creativity that isn't being fully tapped in our careers and our jobs? That's me. I certainly fall into that category for sure. And Tim and I both believe that creativity is likely one of the greatest untapped or underutilized resources in our lives. So the question really is, how do we unleash more of that? How do we maximize it? And today, we're going to touch on two tools that can help us do that: curiosity and connection. These are two tools that we've found over the last 6 years of us doing this work together that can really unleash that creativity and that innovative thinking and bring it home into your projects, your community, your workplace, your families, etc. So Tim, why don't we dive in with the next step?
So it's 6:30 a.m. on June 9th, 2020. And I am standing on the 200 block of South Tryon Street. That's just a few blocks away from here. It's deadly quiet. If you don't know, Tryon Street is the main street of downtown Charlotte. Now, we call it Uptown. Don't ask me why. That's a whole thing. It'd be a whole talk in itself. It's quiet, unbelievably quiet. The world is shut down. We are in the middle of a thing called COVID-19 that was supposed to last a couple of weeks, then maybe a few months. We don't know where it's taking us. And more importantly, we are just over 2 weeks past George Floyd being murdered. And as I stand on that street, I am a stone's throw away from a monument to Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy. It's a marker that says, here is where Jefferson Davis had his last full cabinet meeting. That's history. That's history written on the streets of Charlotte. And yet I'm standing there because in a few short hours, we are going to rewrite history on that very block. And we're going to do it with creativity. Because in a few hours, 22 artists and countless helpers are going to write the words, paint the words, embellish the words, Black Lives Matter on that very block. But for that moment, it's quiet. And I had a chance to think, how did I get here? Why am I here? How did I get wrapped up in this? To do that, you have to go back 4 short days in the past. My wife and I are in a car with our kids. We are taking a trip to the mountains. We are getting away from it. COVID is driving us nuts. The world is going crazy. We got to go to an Airbnb and get out of here. We got to unplug. But characteristically, she's driving because she likes to drive, and I'm a terrible driver, and I'm on my phone. And she's like, Tim, you got to put that phone away. You're driving me nuts. We're supposed to unplug it. So let me check Twitter really quickly. Just give me a few more minutes. I think we've all been there. Just give me a few seconds. And then I see it. A text from Taiwo Jayoba, who at the time was the city manager of Charlotte. And he wrote a question. What if we painted the words Black Lives Matter on the square? That also was on Tryon Street. And in that moment, I realized something. I could make that happen. I may have the connections. I might have the creative connections to make that happen. And my mind is exploding and my wife is yelling, Tim, put the phone down. Just give me 4 minutes. I think I can make something really cool happen. Hang on, because I know Taiwo Jayoba and I know his staff and I know artists who would want to do this. And so I'm texting and I'm emailing and I'm calling on a Saturday morning, a group of artists called Brand the Moth, saying, do you think you could do this? If he's serious about this, can you do it? And they're saying yes. I'm reaching out to Taiwo. I'm reaching out to his unfortunate staff that was silly enough to give me their cell numbers on a Saturday. If Taiwo is serious, I think we can make this happen. And all the time my wife is saying, Tim, get off the phone. We have to unplug. No, I can make a connection happen here. And it happened. Suddenly, Taiwo and his team and Brand the Moth and other artists they brought in through a group called Black Market Charlotte said, we can do this if you want us to do it. And the city said, we think we can get the attorneys. We think we can make this happen. Let's move forward. Let's do this. Let's write Black Lives Matter on the street. And then 4 days later, we're there. I'm standing right there on Tryon Street, holding my breath because at any moment it could get shut down. This thing came together so quickly. Within 24 hours of making those texts, we had a design. 4 days later, we're on the street. The city could object. A city council person could stop it. The police could come by at any second, and I am waiting to see if this can happen. And then I watch an artist, a man who goes by the name Damn It Wesley, and I'm not kidding you. I could tell you his real name, but that's a secret. And he takes a long pole, and there's a brush, a roller brush on the end of it, and he dips it deep into a can of yellow paint. And he takes that first stripe of the letter that would become B in Black Lives Matter, and we are on our way, and the world explodes. Matt and I are running around handing people paint cans, talking to media, throwing water at artists. Artists are coming in and helpers are coming in and taking on all the other letters. They're putting their own unique designs on it. They've got helpers that are measuring, painting, mopping sweat off their brow. All of a sudden it hits the internet, boom. Unbelievable amounts of people are commenting on this. People are getting in their cars, running, driving, taking scooters to be part of this. There's singing, there's dancing, there's crying, there's rejoicing. People have their children with them. It's an amazing thing, but we have a clock. The street is supposed to open at 6 p.m. to traffic. We've got to make this happen. We've got to keep going. At 5:55, I find myself standing there with a megaphone, calling everyone to be quiet and to give a round of applause to the incredible artists who made this happen. And in that moment, I realized I was connected to them. I didn't know them, many of them before that day. I knew some, but we were connected forever because we had written something on the streets and hopefully in the hearts of the people that were there that day. And then it hit 6 o'clock and the street did not reopen. A silent prayer vigil started and that street stayed closed for over 3 months. So how did I get there? How was I was the director of marketing for a pizza company 2 years before. How did I get to be in that position to help make that happen? It was through the power of curiosity. Before we go into that, let's play this video and get a sense of what it was like to be there that day.
Legacy. Are you willing to attach yourself to a legacy that's bigger than yours? Is it all about you? Is it self-preservation, or is it about your brothers and sisters? What do you live for, and what is your legacy? What are they gonna say about you when you're gone? Does it matter 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, or do you just want to be remembered as a t-shirt? Have you attached yourself to a legacy? Do you have enough relationships in this world that people are going to remember you for your morals, your values, or are they going to remember you for your last tweet? Does your name stand forever? Do you have integrity? Do you have passion? Do you have purpose? Do you have legacy? Are you trying to be healed? Are you trying to heal others, or is it about self-preservation? Because if it's about that, then we're not going to make any positive change. I need us to move forward, but do you know where we was at? And I need you to make a choice. You either going to build or destroy. Don't watch me not breathing. Stop the camera and get involved. I need you to get to action. I need you to do something. The protest is not about today. The protest is 365 days a year. Are you ready to do something bigger than you? Do you have integrity? Will you do the right thing when nobody is looking? Do you have passion? Are you fired up about something and you don't know where to place it? Have you walked into your purpose yet? And are you willing to attach yourself to a legacy that's bigger than you?
That was a powerful day. Captured beautifully by Greg Jackson and by our friends at Charlotte Star Room. So the question is worth asking, how did Matt and how are we in the position to help make that happen? We're not painters. We can paint a wall, I can't paint a canvas. I can draw, but it's not my strength. How did it happen? It happened through the connections that we made through the creative community at work in Charlotte. And we're going to talk a lot more about that later in this chat. But all of that started with us being curious about the creative community and the people that make it up. So let's talk about curiosity. Who's this guy on the screen? George. All right. Curious George, right? So we're going to ask the question, is he a hero or is he a villain and a troublemaker? Right? Because as children, we are encouraged to be curious. We connect to people just because, right? Think about the sandbox. You can go from being perfect strangers to somebody's bestest buddy in seconds just by sitting down with them and building a sandcastle. But at a certain point, we're all told to grow up, focus in, get serious. And curiosity can be a distraction. It's seen as pointless at best, sometimes in the workforce, or damaging at the worst in the professional marketplace, and just a complete barrier to professional success because it distracts us. As adults, we're encouraged to engage in actions that develop directional and transactional relationships. Let me say that again, directional and transactional relationships based on achieving an objective. Life gets boiled down to how can we solve for X? How can we do it in the fewest moves? And who can get us there the fastest right now? People stop being people. They become assets and tools. That impacts how we see our teammates, neighbors, friends, our clients. We know them for what they do or how they relate to what we do, but not who they are. We need them for what they can give us. And if they can't help us, we move on. We don't need them if they can't help us. I may be curious about somebody. I may be curious about this gentleman sitting right here, but if he can't help me right now, let's move. It even leads us to be pigeonholed in our own companies, our own jobs. We can only see what's right in front of us, not the bigger picture. And this impacts how we see our coworkers and ourselves. They are not, your coworkers and those around you are not assets, and neither are you. Because when we limit other people, we limit ourselves and our capacity. And in my busy life, I fall prey to that myself often, if I'm not careful. I still fall prey to that. But on my best days, I remember that connection is not a zero-sum game. That relationships with those around me does not have to be about winners and losers. People are way more than what they can do for me right now. They are not equations to be solved. They are more than their salary or their title or their performance evaluation. The people around us have needs and stories. They have insights and they have passions and talents that are so much more than what I need from them right now. And the same applies to everybody out here and out there. Often people are way more than they think. And they have amazing stories if you take the time to stop, ask them questions, and listen. And if the pages do what you want them to. But when we take the time to get to know them and indulge our curiosity, possibilities open up. And that leads us to another important message or more important thing that Matt and I have learned. Curiosity leads to connection. So for the rest of this talk and for the rest of today and for the rest of your year, I am challenging you to embrace your inner curious George and indulge curiosity for curiosity's sake. Promise that you will build up your curiosity database because that will lead to unlikely, surprising connections. I call them Slumdog Millionaire moments. When all the little things you collected along the way that didn't seem to have any value suddenly come together so you're there to do something great. And that's exactly how the Black Lives Matter mural sparked on our end. When we took the time to get to know those artists and their stories, and by extension, the people they knew, we had no idea what was in the future. But without that curiosity and indulging it, that mural may have remained an unrealized reality. If we had invested our time and stopped, given of ourselves and asked them questions, I guarantee that Taiwo's team and Brand the Moth and the artist would not have returned my frantic texts on that Saturday morning. And perhaps that mural that means so much would never have happened. It's okay to just learn about people. If you want to get to know somebody, get to know them. The person in the elevator, that guy in the department that has nothing to do with yours, your neighbors, the person standing that works in the cubicle, 3 cubicles over from you, right? That person that you saw on Instagram that just looks cool, like Brooke, my friend right here, who I met through Instagram. And Sydney, who I can see over there, who I met through Instagram and first before meeting her in real life. Just reach out to them. You'll be surprised at what happens when people reach back. Because once upon a time, Matt and I were just curious about artists in Charlotte. We had great jobs. I was a pizza guy. He owned his own copywriting business. But indulging that curiosity changed our lives. We don't always know why we learn something or meet someone or when it'll come into play. But when it does, it is magic. Being curious about others makes us curious about ourselves. It connects us to them and to ourselves and who we can be and who we already are. And those connections we form help us triangulate our own place in the world, how we can be much more in it. And that awareness makes so much more possible. We need connection. In fact, we're hardwired for it.
They think they've heard the last from you, but they haven't. So they're hoping. No. So Tim talked about the tool of curiosity. I'm going to go deeper now into the tool of connection, because now we see how they're connected. But I'm entirely qualified to handle this part of the talk because I am an identical twin. I was born an identical twin a certain number of years ago, and and it's getting bigger by the moment. But what that means is that I was singular in this world for the duration of one entire cell. One entire cell. This actually is the first picture that was ever taken of Mike and I. It's actually, I have no idea who I am in this photo. Very strange. But the truth is, I do often find myself wondering, when 2 cells split, who was that? Was that me or was that my brother, before we split? And why did we split? Why do two cells, 2 lives become, or why does one life become 2? Why do we disconnect? Why do we disconnect? So as a twin, I find myself getting very sort of nerding out on anything related to twinhood, right? I mean, throughout my life, I'm constantly watching movies, documentaries, listening to podcasts, reading articles, and whatnot to learn more about what it means to be a twin, because it's such a part of my own identity. And a few years ago, I stumbled upon this study that was done by researchers at the University of Turin and the University of Parma in Italy. And what they did is the scientists were using ultrasonography to sort of track the motions of fetuses in utero. And what they discovered was actually fascinating. So with each passing week, as the twins developed, they would spend more and more time reaching out to each other and less time focused on themselves. They did this in a number of ways. I mean, it could be as simple as an arm reaching out and stroking the head or the back or touching the arm. So as they watched this, they realized that these were not accidental gestures. These were deliberate, intentional gestures. It wasn't because of the spatial proximity, it's crowded in there. No, these were deliberate gestures reaching out toward each other. It could be that they are trying to help each other develop and grow and succeed. And in fact, in retrospect, it does seem like that is probably what's going on. There's a hardwired DNA impulse to help your counterpart grow, develop, and succeed. I would even argue that reaching out is perhaps one person's first exercise in creative liberty, first creative gesture in your life, to reach your hand out, to draw it in, to turn your hand this way or that way, to even make the decision to reach out in the first place. What these findings suggest is that the twins are aware of each other's existence, that they actually prefer to interact with each other, and that they respond to each other in really special, unique ways. And what this really means is that all of us, every single one of us, is hardwired in our DNA for connection, for reaching out to each other. So throughout my life, I have found myself gravitating toward opportunities to connect with others, to reach out to others. You might argue that it's because I was twin and I had early practice at this, but I would assert that we are all social creatures and that we all have this innate natural impulse to connect with others. In fact, if you look at a baby, mere hours, if not minutes after they're born, they're looking at other human faces. They're not looking at inanimate objects, and they're even mimicking those faces as well. Social creatures. So I've had many opportunities to experience the true power of connection throughout my life, and I'll share one example. So in the summer of 1995, I'm about to graduate from college, and I'm sort of teetering on the verge of the real world, and I'm feeling pretty lost, pretty panicked. I don't really know what to do. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a producer in the entertainment world, right? I wanted to produce mostly live theater, but I was open to other avenues as well, but I didn't really know how to go about doing that. So as someone who's sort of, compelled to connect, for lack of a better idea, I trotted over to the Alumni Association on campus, and I walked up to the front desk and I said, could you print out a list of anyone who's graduated from Carolina who's working as a producer in the entertainment world? And 20 or 30 minutes later, after the dot matrix printer, I'm sure, ran out of ink a bunch of times, she hands me a ream of paper about that thick. And I go home. Tim and I were actually roommates at the time. I go home and I start cold calling hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people, and basically asking for what I want, telling them what I need. The truth is, I left a lot of messages with assistants, a lot of voicemails, maybe a few answering machines. I mean, this is a while ago, I'm not gonna lie, but I didn't get a lot of callbacks, but I did get a few people to call me back, including one person. His name is John Haber. And it just so happened that he worked at the most prolific Broadway producing company in New York. And so a conversation led to an invitation to come up and meet. That led to an internship. And that led to me getting actually hired by Dodger Theatricals, which was, again, the most prolific Broadway producer in New York. Every year cranking out multiple multi-million-dollar plays and musicals on Broadway, national tours, regional theater productions. And I just started working my way up the ladder and eventually found myself on the executive producing team, where we're guiding multi-million-dollar projects from inception through to opening night and beyond. I'm working with like crazy people. I'm working with A-list celebrities. We're going to Tony parties. Our shows were nominated for 50 Tony Awards. We brought home 14 of them. I'm basically living my dream job in my mid to late 20s. And I'm becoming very, very present to the power of connection, because none of this would have happened if I hadn't reached out to someone, asked them for what I needed, but more importantly, perhaps, they took the time to reach out back to me. I can trace every professional moment in my life back to John Haber and that moment of connection that he and I had. And over the years, really becoming incredibly, incredibly present to the power of connecting with others. Another thing that I learned in life is that life can start to feel isolated too, especially when we're focused on our careers. We're working hard. So much of our work requires solitude to just get it out and get it done. I imagine a lot of people here can probably relate to that. And so over time, as we focus on our professional journeys so much, we get so hyper-focused on individual achievement that we forget that one really, really critical thing, right? That we're all hardwired to reach out to each other and to connect with each other, to help each other develop and grow and succeed. So why, when we get out to the real world, do we get so preoccupied with ourselves and we start minding, or I should say not minding, the increasing gap in between us? I'm just as guilty as the next guy. With any project I've taken on, producing, writing, whatever it was, more often than not, that project ultimately led me to feel isolated in some way. So I imagine a lot of people hopefully can relate to this in some way, that you're holed up doing your best work in whatever field you're in. And then one day you sort of look up and you feel detached. In 2013, I had one of those moments. I had a show that was closing on Broadway. It was a show called The Other Place. I had conceived of it and developed it for 5 years. And went to off-Broadway. Laurie Metcalf ended up in the lead role. It transferred to Broadway. She was nominated for a Tony Award. But ultimately, as most shows do, they posted a closing notice. And so here's this show, this passion project of mine that I've poured my life, my blood, sweat, and tears into, is now closing. My wife and I have a 6-month-old baby. We're paying out the nose to live in Brooklyn. And we want to be near family. And I'm finding myself in the throes of a full-on creative midlife crisis. What is next for me? I have no idea what's next for me. We pack up the U-Haul. We move back to my hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina in 2013. And I spent a year or two basically thrashing about, trying to figure out what's next. And then it dawned on me. I woke up one day and I remembered the power of connection, the power of reaching out. So that's what led to starting Creative Mornings Charlotte. See, when I was sort of tuned into the power of connection in 1995, it was because I was trying to find my way. It was more of a survival tool. But now in my early 40s, it's something different, right? I'm looking to feel fulfilled. I'm looking to feel like I belong to part of a community. I'm actually looking to contribute value to that community. So what do? I call my old friend Tim Miner, and I said, how does this sound to you? And it turned out that he was kind of in the exact same spot that I was, needing that connection back in his life. So we launched the Charlotte chapter of Creative Mornings, a place for creative Charlotteans to connect with each other. I don't know if anyone here has been to a Creative Mornings event before. Has anyone here been to a Creative Mornings? We have a few people. Yes, room for growth. I love it. It happens typically.
Market. I like it.
Tapped market, yeah, untapped market. It usually happens on the first Friday of each month. We have a manifesto that we start with, which begins with the first line: everyone is creative. Everyone is creative. Every single person in this room is creative, whether you believe it or not. You are a creative being. And if you could zoom in on this photo, this is one of our first events that happened back in 2015. If you could zoom in on every face in this photo, you would see the joy of connection lighting up on every single person's face in that photo. And as we continued on month after month, producing this free community event, really designed to celebrate the creative spirit of our city, more and more people started showing up. Hundreds upon hundreds of people are showing up to experience this unique power of connection. And we're getting the honor of meeting incredible icons of our community. I mean, I got to sit down and interview Harvey Gantt, the first African-American mayor of Charlotte and an incredible creative architect in his own right. And that particular morning, we have 750 people sitting in a warehouse, drinking coffee and listening to Harvey's story.
An unair-conditioned warehouse.
An unair-conditioned warehouse in the middle of July. You know, and no way could be pulled off without our small but mighty team, including Steve Whitby sitting right there, who was in the very first planning meeting of any Creative Mornings meeting that we ever did. Talk about the man behind the curtain. That's the man behind the curtain right there. But as these events grew month after month, we started getting approached by stakeholders all throughout Charlotte saying, you've caught something, you've captured some lightning in a bottle, you've caught some energy here. How far can you go with it? How much impact can you make with this? And so Tim and I had to start asking some pretty hard questions, right? We had to start asking, what's our responsibility here? Could we leverage community-wide connection to change our city's narrative and our creative ecosystem?
I just want you to recognize that that applause was because I'm coming back, not because
I
you did a
understand.
good job.
Understood.
It's funny. I start with the serious thing, but above the two of us, I am not the serious one. So as Matt said, we learned we needed a bigger container. What we started took us in all sorts of surprising directions. Creative Mornings Charlotte connected us to deeper wells of creativity in Charlotte, just like we hoped. But it had a kind of a funny side effect. And it was that it connected us to our own creative powers. And that presented us with a familiar challenge because people were interested. They were coming forward. And the challenge is when people reach out to you, do you reach back? And how far do you reach? Because people were reaching out to us. They were curious about us. They were wanting to do more with us or give us money. That was crazy. Or resources or connections. They wanted to connect with us and through us to other people. They wanted our opinions. That was dangerous. They challenged us to do more and think bigger. And as Matt said, one of the people that pushed us the hardest was Steve Whitby, who pushed us to be on the stage here this morning. Being curious, we discovered, led us to become community connectors. And in that, we needed a bigger container. And so we started Charlotte as Creative. Charlotte Creative is a nonprofit. First, we needed it to hire, to house our side gigs, right? Some things that spun out of Creative Mornings, and we'll talk about that later. Then we needed the container for the side gigs that spun out of our side gigs. Oh, our wives were so happy. And then 3 years ago, after an intensive incubator program, year-long, we left our jobs, good jobs, because we had a calling to be community connectors. And now it's our full-time job. So the mission of Charlotte is Creative is to spark surprising and engaging connections between Charlotte's artists, creative entrepreneurs, and established business community to help them boost opportunity, livability, success by working together. We work hard every day to connect creatives to all the resources that they need: promotion, funding, awareness, social capital, matchmaking. And so here are a few of the ways that we do that. And I want to leave time for questions because I am long-winded. So I'm going to try to breeze through these. The first one was called Queen City Quiz Show. So we received a grant from the Knight Foundation to see if we could use entertainment and fun, just like we used it at Creative Mornings. By the way, just really loving the outfit there. We wanted to see if we could find a new way to connect people to important data and to each other. So we decided to use a game show format, because we love game shows, to share information ranging from local history and silly trivia to housing challenges, poverty statistics, and demographic data. You know, the things that we love to gather together and discuss. We wanted to play an old game, meetings, in a new way by gamifying it and bringing creatives along with us to do it. We got the money to do 5 in 1 year. We did 15, and we're still going. My absolute favorite one was, by the way, let me just show you the connections that were made by some of the people, just the joy on their faces. But my favorite was we did Democrats versus Republicans, and this was a mayoral year in Charlotte. So we had mayoral candidates play pin the tail on the donkey for trivia, and that's no lie. And then 2 weeks ago, we got to play with Mecklenburg County, and it's not every day that you do something and that the county manager tells you that you're hilarious, and you get to tell jokes about her, and she takes it. It's a good thing. But the real win is what you see on the screen. We wanted to connect people to data, but we ended up helping them connect to one another in a creative way. These individuals on the screen may not have met if not for the quiz show. And then it went from there. So here's a confession. We're huggers. Well, you'll learn more about what that hugging is. We've given out more than 300 hugs since we started, and that equates to more than $75,000. Wait a minute, what does that mean, Matt? That makes me curious. We created the Hug Micro Grant. In talking to creatives, we learned about their problems, and grant culture was one of them, getting grants, applying for them, being seen for their value. And so we wanted to subvert that. We didn't have a lot of money. We had $250. So we decided we would start giving out $250 micro grants to remove one obstacle from a creative every month at Creative Mornings. Soon it was 4. In the last 3 years, with corporate sponsors, foundation sponsor, and individual sponsors, we have given out more than 300 of those, closer to 350. We have $1,000 micro grants now, space-based and resource-based grants. HUG stands for Helpful Unfettered Gift. It is a simple thing to do. You know, a hug $250 is not going to fund a whole idea. It was created to remove just one obstacle, but it led us to learn something very important, that the money was good, but the connection is the real reward. And that's what our huggies, yes, by the way, that's what we call them. Please don't record this. We don't need any copyright infringement problems. But that's what they told us. What they really valued was the encouragement and the connection that was created, and that we told them, you're not crazy, keep going, keep tugging at that. This led us into an even different insight into how to work with creatives, and that is that our special sauce is making a series of small promises and keeping them. That's not groundbreaking. Our culture in the United States tells us to swing for the fences, but with relationships and connections, we're going for base hits, not home runs. Just get on base. Just move forward a little bit. And so when we meet with creatives that we want to connect with, we start small. A micro grant, an introduction, a story on our media channels, advice, matchmaking. We tell them what we're going to do, and then we keep that promise. And then we make another one. It's just kicking snowballs down hills and starting small creative fires to see where they could go. Just 2 quick stories, and I know Matt's got to get back up here. One recipient of kind of that way of thinking is not coming up on the screen. This is Amber Thompson. I was driving in Charlotte one day and saw her repainting a mural. You may know it. It's a Coke bottle. Her grandfather painted it. I know that because against the time that I had, I stopped and heard her story. And her grandfather is dead, but she goes around and retouches his murals. So we told her story in our newsletter. Then we got her a gig on WBTV. Then we hired her for a small project. Then it led to bigger projects like this mural in South End. And now when I call her, we can't get her on the other line because she's too busy. We didn't do that. We just started a little something. We made a little connection. Another is I Am Queen Charlotte. This was a book that 2 amazing creatives, Hannah Hassan and Scott Gardner, were making to tell the stories of Black women in Charlotte. They met with us and said, where do you think we could take this? And we shared the connections we had, the insights we had with funding sources, with other people that could help them. That opened up their world. And that book became a week of celebration, celebrating the contributions and the stories of Black women in Charlotte. We didn't do that. We just helped kick the snowball down the hill through the connections that we had. And here it is, and Matt's going to talk about it. For us, it all starts and ends with curiosity and the connections that come from it.
So underneath that mission, what's our vision? Honestly, our vision is a culture in Charlotte where creatives feel connected, where creativity is nurtured, and where collaboration is celebrated. We want to see that both, not just in the creative community, we want to see it throughout Charlotte, right? In workplaces, in neighborhoods, in churches, everywhere, right? A culture of connection, creativity, and collaboration. We're starting to put some meat on the bones too. We just did a survey study with UNCC's Urban Institute where we asked hundreds of creatives working in Mecklenburg County a number of questions that they've never been asked before about their business realities, because we see creatives and artists as small businesses. One of the questions we asked them is, what is your level of satisfaction or happiness working as a creative in Charlotte? 56% said somewhat or extremely satisfied. 24% said somewhat or extremely dissatisfied. 20% kind of right in the middle. But what's interesting is that dissatisfied respondents did not feel overly supported by other artists and creatives, their peers, right? And by contrast, respondents who were extremely satisfied with their creative career often credited the support of creative networks as a source of their satisfaction. This idea of feeling connected was actually more important to their satisfaction than financial success, as the study will be releasing in the next few months will elucidate. So really starting to put some real metrics behind and some data behind how important nurturing connection is to an ecosystem's overall health. And here's what we're finding as we do this work. The more you get curious, the more you reach out and connect, the more you collaborate and nurture the creativity inside of each other, the more creative we all become. The better our ideas, the more prolific our output. And that is absolutely applicable to every single person in this room. You don't have to be an artist or muralist in Charlotte to take this to heart. This is true. These are truisms that can be put to use inside of Method, inside of whatever company you work at. That if you're collaborating and connecting and reaching out and getting curious with each other, at the end of the day, the creative output is going to soar.
All right, so I'm going to say it one more time. When people reach out to you, you have to ask yourself, do you reach back? Because you never know that being curious about the person standing next to you in an audition line, say, in high school for a musical, which is exactly how these two idiots met. These two fools on the screen. We have been described in the past by someone we trust as wonderful fools. I want that at the top of my CV forever. We were just curious to see if we could crack each other up. But that led to a lifelong connection to each other and to our creativity. And trust us, we are not going to win NEA grants for the work that we do. But we have learned that our particular genius is helping creatives get connected to the things they need to be the best that they are. Matt and I did not study creativity. We didn't study connection. We don't have PhDs. What we did do is when the time came and the urge was there, we dove in head first. And we followed where it's taken us. And where it's taken us is amazing places. Oftentimes, our part of a story of the creative journey of something that happens in Charlotte is lost, but we were there at the beginning, helping kick that snowball down the hill, or setting that little creative fire that then went ablaze. All of our adventures have led us here today to this stage, to a room full and a Zoom full of creatives. And I mean that. You are creative. Oftentimes we get locked in that. I'm not creative. I can't. I'm not Picasso. I'm not. You have your own blend of creativity. You have your own creative powers, and they only grow the more you indulge them and the more you reach out. So make no mistake, you are creative, even if you don't realize it. And you have the capacity to indulge that creativity and put it out into the world to help someone else or many someone else's engage, enhance, and unleash their own powers. And in doing that, it'll only enhance yours. There is a magic waiting for all of us in curiosity and connection, in collaboration and reaching out and accepting when others reach back. So do it. Get curious, reach out to each other, ask for what you need, offer what you have, collaborate, nurture each other's creativity, and then watch what happens. You are curious about us. That's why you're here. And now we're connected. And we challenge you to keep that going.
And that's kind of where we want to land is on the challenge, right? Because the truth is we all still have our jobs and our businesses and our goals and our projects and our teams and our bosses.
Yeah, by the way, we are not encouraging any Jerry Maguires today. Like, no one has to go to the fish tank and grab we're not saying, I'm leaving my job. You can do this inside of this company, inside your department, inside your coworkers.
Yeah, and the question is like, how do we still do all of that work and not revert into that default work mode, which I think a lot of us can relate to, which is detachment and isolation. And we believe that curiosity and connection are two of the tools that can help spring those traps. right? But in order to get there, we have to be really, really intentional about getting curious about each other and reaching out to each other. Even if you're an introverted, designer who doesn't believe that all this connection crap is really all it's cracked up to be, that there's not magic in real connection. We have evidence that suggests otherwise. And Tim and I's mission really is to champion a culture of pervasive curiosity and connection, so that we're all able to show up as the most creative person that we can in our communities and at our workplaces. That's where real innovation lies, and I think that's where real fulfillment lies as well. And here is the thing, right? You have the power to champion this at your workplace. You have that power. So consider what's truly possible if you work in that sort of environment. How is your work easier? How is it more fulfilling? How is it more, infused with purpose, right? And how can you boost innovation and really peg the creativity meter at your place of work? We know you have the power to do it. Hopefully now you have some more tools to help you do it. And the key thing is that you were actually born to do it. And we are curious to see what happens next.